correctly. What you got to remember is that the parents are in charge, and your relationship with them is going to dictate what you can talk to them about, right? So you can't answer a question that nobody's asked. And so that's how I think about it in all yoga therapy, really. So, what you want to do is plant seeds that might have them ask the question, do you think it's a good idea to give my ADHD kid 7 pounds of sugar and red food dye at midnight before they go to bed? Like, you want them to ask the question, because then you can say, it's a terrible idea what you're doing. But you can't say it until they're there. And I guess, an analogy from yoga therapy work that might be useful is like when we do weight loss work. We were talking about this recently, like obesity work. Yesterday, Stephen Bader presented a case study on someone he was working with, and it was interesting. It was all about how to get this person to a place where they realized what was going on so that they could sort of begin the work that you'd want to do with them. And so I'm saying all that to say the yoga you do with the parents is going to help them get there, right? People make bad decisions. Sometimes it's information. But in my experience, 90% of bad decision making is really based on like imbalances, like not seeing things clearly, not having your nervous system in a place where you can assess a situation and do what's right. With parenting and children and all this, it's often about kind of dealing with your own stuff simultaneously, and all the stress maybe that you're having because your child is suffering, and or maybe that plus taking a lot of your time. So that's one part of it. You have to remember that at all times. You can't just kind of go in guns ablazing, and there's another part of that as a yoga therapist that might be helpful to hear just in general, which is that you have to establish yourself as an expert if you expect people to listen to you. So if you're teaching little kids, you're taking a ball and telling people to breathe, and you're playing games with pom-poms, and you're doing art projects, and then you're thinking, I don't understand why these parents aren't asking me like these questions about how to raise their child. It's good to step back and imagine it from their point of view. Like, all they know is that you're like doing what looks like, maybe from the outside, maybe even silly yoga games with children, right? So you have to like really see yourself, like, how are you going to establish yourself as an expert? So the way to do that is to do it on the way in. So one thing you could do is like talk to people about how you work, but like as a reminder of like, this is what I do. I'm a yoga therapist. I work with your kid in this way. I work with families in this way. This is my areas of expertise. Here are the things I know about. If you don't do that right away, it happens in all sorts of yoga therapy, right? We're like, I don't understand why this person doesn't want to know more about what I think about like lifestyle choices. Like, I'm trying to get that in there. It's like, well, because they don't know. They just think you teach people down dog. They don't know. So a lot of it's that, so usually like when I'm intaking someone in any fashion, part of my intake is like explaining to them what I do and don't do, and what I know and don't know. And I find that really helps. And that actually took me a long time to develop. It's not obvious when you're yoga. It's like, you think you're just going to like kind of roll, but if you don't do it right away, people get a lot of ideas in their head about you. The same way people get ideas in their head about any practitioner. Like when you go to the doctor, it's the opposite, right? Everyone's like, everything, everything to do. You're a doctor. Doctors know everything. And the doctor's like, I don't know everything. I barely know anything. I mean, I know more about current medical research than any doctor I've ever been to that's a family practitioner, because they're too busy to read the stuff I read. I don't get it. They are super busy. They have no time to read the study that came out last year. they're like working off stuff from 10 years ago because it's just like they're inundated, working all day, seeing a client every 20 minutes. I get to like sit in my office with my feet up and read 30 medical studies, right? So it's, you get my point. Like people make a lot of assumptions. So you might want to like think about like the way you make assumptions and just make sure you like really lay it out. But if you want to be an expert, like if you're working with children with mental health conditions, then you want to be supplying the parents with information that's useful.
Yeah.
Because then they'll see you as that person, even if it's just handing them materials that somebody else wrote. I mean, it doesn't have to be like mind blowing, but if you're the go-to, then you're the go-to, right? And if you're not, they're not gonna, they're not gonna care. You're like, you should do yoga with me. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine, or whatever. I have a therapist. Like, it's tricky. So, I mean, what I've seen a lot is like parents, like, I mean, you get a pretty good, like, as a private yoga therapist, like, people are obviously concerned about their children, right? These are not like failing. The parents are like failing at being parents in some way. I mean, they're bringing their kid, right? But often they're confused. Often they're confused as to like what's the best way to support their kid. Usually because there's a lot of pressure, in the household, like you're saying. A kid with a mental health condition wreaks total havoc on a family, and it eats all the atmosphere and the parents' time. So it's kind of tricky, right? Because how do you get someone to commit to doing something else when they already have had so much taken away from them, maybe, right? I would probably just go pure, like almost like autoimmune protocol. But it's like with post-viral syndromes, I mean, really, it's like massive amounts of brainwave state changing. So I would have her doing seriously copious amounts of yoga nidra. You could try prana nidra,
Yeah.
any of those types of practices, just to see how much you could shift her brainwave states if she's willing to do it. Your brainwave states change, you get more healing brainwave states by doing it consistently and getting better at it. And you get more of those during the day while you're not doing it. So those are all just facts. I would say, I have no idea, like unless the neurologist tells you something different, but if this is a post-viral syndrome, then this is her best bet. And I would work her towards, it's a big ask, towards, so one step at a time, 40 minute sessions a day. That seems like a lot, but she's got neuropathy in her hands and feet for no reason.
Yeah.
Like you have to match like if she goes, it's not going to go away. I mean, it could, but she has to change like her restorative possibilities in her system. The skill building super important, because when they study this, the more experienced the practitioner, the more they see the brainwave states shift. So that's the thing. So if you don't do it enough, you're not going to get, it's going to take so much longer to get the results you want. So you really want her to get better and better and better at dropping into those states. When you're working with someone who has PTSD for something else, basically what you're doing is being trauma informed while you're working with the something else.
Right.
And then as you introduce new things, like if you're giving her breath work, which with someone with PTSD can go either way. It could be very triggering, or it could be really helpful. You'd have to be permission based. You'd have to definitely let her know you can do other things if she doesn't like it. You have to give her a lot of choices. And then, I mean, it sounds like you're really talking to her about, like, my point is, I guess, about stress response and how to affect her nervous system, right? So,
right. Yeah.
That's fine because you're not like really hiding something. Yeah. And I like the way that you've adjusted your language to meet her where she is. You're not, there's no subterfuge. You're like, haha, this is the PTSD protocol for my rest. I'm gonna sneak it in.